Since we met you people 500 years ago, look at us. We've given everything. You are still taking. It's true. I mean, where will the whole Western world be without Africa?
Now, the reason China is so thirsty for Africa is because whoever controls Africa controls the world. Because most of the minerals necessary for a technologically sophisticated society and for a militaristically dominant society, those minerals come from Africa. Yeah. So if you want to be the biggest economy, you got to control the resources of the continent. If you want to be the strongest military, you got to control the resources of the continent.
It is time to acknowledge openly that much of Europe and the United States have been built from the vast wealth harvested from the sweat, tears, blood, and horrors of the transatlantic slave trade.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
I'm Maureen.
Yeah, so in today's episode, we're going to be playing you a very interesting interview of a Ghanaian author called Ama Ata Aido.
Yeah, and in this interview, Ama was just describing the relationship of the Western people and Africa and why they need Africa to survive and to what lengths they'll go to maintain this relationship between themselves and Africans.
Yeah, before we say anything else further, we'll just play you this clip and then we come back and talk about it. Let's watch.
And since we met you people 500 years ago, look at us. We've given everything. You are still taking. It's true. I mean, where will the whole Western world be without Africa? Our cocoa, our timber, our gold, our diamonds, our platinum, our whatever. Everything you are is us. I am not saying it, it's a fact. And in return for all of this, what have we got? Nothing. Anti-personnel indoctrination against ourselves. If you go and cook your horrible diseases like AIDS, you say it is us. You brought us tuberculosis. We didn't have this big cough until white people came here. In exchange for Africa giving Europe 500 solid years of our people, I mean not Europe, the Western world, of our human beings to work your canes, to dig your gold, to take in gold itself, diamond, I mean, fish, peanuts, palm oil, everything. In exchange for that, we have got nothing. Nothing. And you know it. Nothing. And you look upon, white folks look upon us like monkeys. It is true. It's in your literature. Hey, some of your best thinkers have said this about us. Have you heard of all these Germans? Have you heard?
Okay.
Yes. They said, Lord Burton, people like that, they said, we don't even have the brain of animals. That's what we've got from you people.
But don't you think that this is over now?
Over where? Is it over? Who said that AIDS came from the green monkey? Is it over? Is it over?
Well, if this is your impression, do you think that you can ever forgive us?
It's not a question of forgiveness. I have nothing against you. My point is that you did and you are doing for your survival what is necessary. We can't blame you for that. The fact that we didn't do enough for our own survival and we are still not doing enough for our survival, that is not your problem. Even everybody that God has created has a sense of survival, and if we don't develop it, we can't blame white people. You came here because you needed these things. You took gunpowder from the Chinese. You needed them to shoot people.
Do you consider AIDS as a new form of colonization?
Of course.
Why?
That's why. My people, the Akans, we have a proverb. it says that good morning, thank you is never enough to salt anybody's food forever. You cannot build your life on thank you, morning, thank you, English, thank you, God, which is what aid makes, we are always receiving. Nobody, look, and I don't care who hears, nobody anywhere in this world is going to send you their best of anything. Do you see? Neither the experts nor people, you give us what you can afford. Aid is the leftover, really, and it cannot be enough. Aid, you can, when, the world is, now the world is one place. So, there is nothing wrong if my house is in a crisis and you offered me something. There's nothing wrong, because there is interrelationship. But a whole nation, a whole continent cannot live forever on aid. And I think aid we are in Africa, we are in danger of making foreign aid a kind of policy that is wrong.
So guys, please leave us a comment on the comment section of what you think about this episode. Do you agree with some of our speakers in this video who believe that the whole world in its entirety cannot survive without Africans? Yeah, because most of them have given some very valid reason, being that when the world needs something in terms of mineral, in terms of food, mostly they come to Africa in terms of raw material. Anything they need to build, most of it is found here in Africa. Africans, nobody is your friend. As we are going to see in the following video, there's from an Asian woman herself who says Americans are coming to Africa offering this. China is better. They're coming to Africa. They're offering development in terms of infrastructure and all that.
But none of them really truly are your friends.
So at the end of the day, she reminds you they are still colonizers. Let's watch what she has to say and then we'll come back.
Africa controls the world because Africa has the largest deposits of non-renewable resources: gas, oil, gold, silver, manganese, and coltan, minerals that necessary to create an atomic bomb, and half of them are in Africa. There is no nuclear age without Africa. There is no solar age without Africa. There is no technological age without Africa. And China knows that. That's the reason why China wants to possess Africa, because China is overpopulated, and I've been there once. You think rush hour in New York or rush hour in DC is something? Go sit in China. It's overpopulated. China is #1 producer of cheap things, clothes, materials, fabric, utensils, you name it. China is the Walmart of the planet. America will never be able to sabotage China because America is king of capitalism, and China, on the other hand, is king of communalism. This is the reason why President of the Philippines took China as an ally for long-term goals. Who's gonna treat your country best? The Americans, the Russians, or the Chinese? None of them are gonna treat you well, because they are all colonizers. Africa has no friends. They don't need one. And it is the same scenario of Palestine. They have a lot of resources, more than the country itself combined. And that's why there is a genocide.
So guys, when all is said and done, my message is to the African people, the main important thing that you guys should always remember is, even though you're letting people into your continent, you're doing businesses with people, you should always be wary and have one antenna up, and don't be too quick to trusting people. You can work with them, but also look at the bigger picture, the agenda, and you should be able to call out your leaders whenever you see any sign of impunity, because they are the #1 people who will sell out these African countries when they get the chance. You know, presidents from the other continents, they've really mastered the art of harnessing what Africa has to offer,
controlling the source of
resources. You know, my biggest question is, how comes African presidents can't do this? How comes they can't just bring their brains to thinking and doing these things? You know,
there was one who could have taken Africa to that level. Gaddafi.
You guys remember Gaddafi?
Gaddafi had a plan and he had a vision, but what happens in Africa? All the great leaders, apparently, you know what
end
happens
up dying
to them
for one reason or another.
So who are we left with? The puppets of the West. So
sadly,
and you know, countries that have resources, by the way, look at what is happening in Congo. They never have this.
Oh my God.
Because foreign governments interfere with the governance of such a country to the point where, like, they really don't have that, would you say, democracy to really rule themselves the way they should. So like
and the leaders there are super corrupt
and super hungry for, you know, for personal gains. So like what is happening in Congo, the UN is there, right, for peacekeeping. They're interfering, but you know, I believe for UN peacekeepers to go into a country, they have the powers to really truly stop a war. Exactly.
But you find
and highly trained soldiers.
But you find in cases where war rapidly breaks out and they are there, there's something they're gaining from that war. You know, like a video surfaced online of a UN drone that was smuggling gold from out of Congo. It was attempting to smuggle gold from out of Congo. And in this UN drone also were found illegal guns. And what else was there?
Illegal guns and gold. Illegal gold.
And this is supposed to be a drone of a military US keeping, okay, not US, a military UN that is supposed to be in a peacekeeping mission.
What are they
gold
doing
out
the
of
business
Congo?
of gold?
And you know, my biggest question was for the government to, even because they were trying to hide this gold when the locals ran into it. You know, when all this is happening in a country where there's a president and a president who has a military and a military that, you know, has communications,
just governance in short.
Yes, they know what's happening in the ground. How could this happen in Congo and you want to tell me that the leadership did not know? Maybe they have a stake in all of this.
Here is your latest Africa news. Footage coming out of the Democratic Republic of Congo shows a downed United Nations drone that locals allege was carrying gold, guns, and parachutes. In the footage, you can see locals and soldiers trying to move the drone to an undisclosed location. Locals can be heard speaking in Lingala and Swahili, claiming that this is what the UN is doing in Congo, not protecting, but looting the country. Locals can also be heard talking about the cargo of the UN drone, saying it contains gold, guns, and some escape parachutes. The United Nations MONUSCO peacekeeping mission in DR Congo has been using UAVs, popularly referred to as drones, since 2013. The UN needs to use these kinds of tools to better perform its mandate, said Hervé Latsus, the then Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping Operations, addressing journalists in 2013 during the launch of the unarmed aircraft in Goma.
So guys, so for as long as there's still a country, you know, Ama Ata said it best, Africans don't know how to survive.
And the Western world they've mastered the art of surviving through Africa. So who is, pardon me you guys, who is the stupid person in this situation?
Until Africans know how to govern themselves,
and until Africans wake the hell up, these are the kind of things that will keep happening in this great continent.
Anyway, this the president of Ghana was giving a speech, and he believes that we are owed reparations and that we need to be paid reparations, not because we want the money that comes with it, but because that will just be a good sign of admission of, you know, wrongful doing, you know. But let's play you the clip and then you guys get to decide.
And the centuries of colonial exploitation. Maybe we should also admit that it cannot be easy to build confident and prosperous societies from nations that for centuries have their natural resources looted and their peoples traded as commodities. For centuries, The world has been unwilling and unable to confront the realities of the consequences of the slave trade. But gradually, this is changing, and it is time to bring the subject of reparations firmly to the fore. Granted, the current generations are not the ones that engaged in the slave trade, but that grand inhuman enterprise was state-sponsored and deliberate, and its benefits are clearly interwoven with the present-day economic architecture of the nations that designed and executed it. Reparations must be paid for the slave trade. No amount of money will ever make up for the horrors, but it would make the point that evil was perpetrated.
Guys, so I don't know what you feel about the subject of reparations.
And if you have a comment on the issue, please leave it on our comment section.
How would that, okay, assuming that the West was going to agree to the subject of reparations, right? I'd like to know the process in which they would follow these reparations. Would it be paid through the government? Like, how would that process look like?
Although I don't see anything near reparations happening anytime soon, not anytime soon, because the Westerners, they're not ready to admit that they were ever wrong and that they wronged both Black Americans and they wronged Africans in this matter. Just like, you know, guys, just the other year, was it the other year? King Charles came to Africa, right? And when he came to Kenya, Kenyans insisted that he should have apologized for what they did because of the colonial misdeeds in Africa.
Which he did.
Did he?
He did. He did.
In what words did he?
He apologized, although the journalist from America, not America, but England, who was saying he didn't think the king had any reason to apologize.
Yeah,
so he was very arrogant about it, and he said so long as they gave Africans English as if it was some good gift that people needed to rejoice, as if English is feeding us here in Africa, so long as they gave us English and religion, we should be grateful. To the point
they're taking resources and minerals from Africa. Anyway,
so the topic of reparation, especially to Africans,
you guys tell us what you think. I don't think right now these Europeans and Western people they're
not ready for this topic, because I understand even in America, Black Americans are fighting for reparations. But I understand even at that. By the way, if there was someone who had a greater claim to reparations compared to Africans or other than Africans, if there was someone who had
you can't compare it to Africans, cause Black Americans, yes, they suffered at the hands of the colonial. Well, to them, they were slaves, right? They suffered at the hands of the slave masters, and they really truly deserve reparations for that. But Africans too, they've been suffering for the longest time because of colonialism and post-colonialism. How this continent has been plundered, its wealth has been plundered, until right now Africans only know that they're used to white people taking their resources, but they don't personally benefit from their resources. And during colonialism, whatever happened in colonialism, and consider that whatever they did in Africa, Africans were suffering in their own home. You get what I'm saying? So African Americans deserve a reparation of their own. Africans also deserve a reparation of their own. It's what I think. Although I feel like this is a very touchy subject.
It's a very sensitive topic. But we'd like to hear from you guys. Let us know what you think about this episode on the comment section. One thing I have to say about what Amata said, that you can't blame the white people for coming and taking resources, that they react like that because it's their sense of survival, so you can't blame them. I feel like the first step, the president of Ghana said the West has to pay reparations to Africans.
Right.
Why is that? Because it's not that because what they want is that money, but because reparations will represent the injustices committed, and that they're being held responsible. Just the acknowledgement that the wrong was done.
Right.
Yeah, that wrong was done, and just the acknowledgement that somebody ordered impunity to be done to Africans, and that will just be a recognition of that, a sign.
And while the lady, Miss Ama, is saying that you can't entirely blame white people for how they behaved in Africa because they were doing it for their survival, I don't know, guys, let us know what you think. Would you blame the white people? Where I'm sitting, if I were to lay blame, I think I'd start by laying blame on the governments of Africa as a collective, governments of in Africa.
Before we even get to the government of Africa,
governments in Africa,
the governments in Africa, I feel like you have to call out someone for something they're doing that is wrong, for them to have a different a change in behavior, or for them to know it's wrong, but just to hold them accountable in some kind of way, in some level.
Modern day, who I can blame is really our politicians. They'll be the first to sell us out. Like right now, I can't see any president who's fighting for their people, especially when it comes to Western influences, and when it comes to laws like LGBTQ, I've seen Uganda has really held its own. I've seen Ghana is now holding its own, and I'm seeing Kenya is just sitting on the fence, enjoying this benefit and enjoying that benefit. What does that tell you? You can't trust politicians.
You guys, how many continents do we have in the world? And Africa is one of the richest continents. What makes Africa rich? The mineral resource that the Africa has to offer, you understand?
And also its ability to produce food, but for some weird reason, sometimes food is usually not enough. Like what is happening in Cuba, they have fertile lands, but they're not able to produce food, hence they're relying on foreign aid.
So you ask yourself, if Africa is one of the richest country in the world, how comes, not country but continent, how comes Africa is one of the poorest continents in the world at the same time?
I'd say it's because it's been made by design by the powers that be, people who control the world economy, for it to stay like that because they want to plunder all the wealth that is in Africa, and also, other than blaming these cabals that control the world economy, you can also blame greatly. I'll also still say this, no matter what may, I'll also still blame African leaders, because they're the ones who go into partnership with these people. So long as their retirement packages are made well for them, and so long as their families are taken care, especially after they retire, then they don't care about the country they're leaving behind for the citizens who are in there,
And at this point, I'm just wondering, how comes Africa can't have just one ambitious leader who wants good for the continent? You understand? We are seeing in West Africa the things that are really happening right now, and we have a very young, impressive president who's really he's changing the waves of politics, and when it comes to the benefits he wants for his country. Ibrahim Traore, right now the guy is very famous.
For me, watching from afar, I'm not in his country, so I don't know what. Yes, I don't know what truly his leadership is all about. But watching from afar, because I'm from Kenya, I feel like he's one of the greatest leaders as of right now, because he seems to be putting his country's needs above all else, above
so
foreigners.
Guys, imagine if Africa had more presidents like
Traore,
like Ibrahim Traore, exactly. Because also in South Africa, the ruling party right now of the president, they've been accused of plundering, public resources, and they've been accused of huge, massive corruption. So you're asking yourself, right now, if the path that be from the West, let's say the scramble of Africa, because it's already happening, the Chinese want Africa, the Westerners, Americans want a piece of Africa. You ask yourself, you Africans who are sitting down, why is it that everybody is fighting for, to gain a foothold in Africa? What is it that you don't see, or what kind of leaders are you guys choosing for you to remain in the poor state that you are? And the funny thing is that a lot of Africans want to move from Africa to go abroad. We'd like to hear from you guys. Let us know what you think about this episode on the comment section. We are very, very grateful that you got time to watch our episode, and consider subscribing for those who have not subscribed. You can share this video with those that you think it's going to help.
So until next video, it's a goodbye for us for now.
Although there was a journalist from America, not America, but England, who was saying he didn't think the king had any reason to apologize.
Yeah,
so he was very arrogant about it, and he said so long as they gave Africans English as if it was some good gift that people needed to rejoice, as if English is feeding us here in Africa, so long as they gave us English and religion, we should be grateful. To the point
they are taking resources and minerals from Africa. Anyway,
so the topic of reparation, especially to Africans,
you guys tell us what you think. I don't think right now these Europeans and Western people they are ready to pay reparations.
They're not ready for this topic, because I understand even in America, Black Americans are fighting for reparations. But I understand even at that. By the way, if there was someone who had a greater claim to reparations compared to Africans or other than Africans, if there was someone who had
can't compare it to Africans, cause Black Americans, yes, they suffered at the hands of the colonial. Well, to them, they were slaves, right? They suffered at the hands of the slave masters, and they really truly deserve reparations for that. But Africans too, they've been suffering for the longest time because of colonialism and post-colonialism. How this continent has been plundered, its wealth has been plundered, until right now Africans only know that they're used to white people taking their resources, but they don't personally benefit from their resources. And during colonialism, whatever happened in colonialism, and consider that whatever they did in Africa, Africans were suffering in their own home. You get what I'm saying? So African Americans deserve a reparation of their own. Africans also deserve a reparation of their own. It's what I think. Although I feel like this is a very touchy subject.
It's a very sensitive topic. But we'd like to hear it from you guys. Let us know what you think about this episode on the comment section. We are very, very grateful that you got time to watch our episode. And consider subscribing for those who have not subscribed. You can share this video with those that you think it's going to help.
Yeah, so until next video, it's a goodbye for us for now.